Hi guys, I hope that you're doing well. I just wanted to send you a short video just to kind of go over briefly what we're going to be doing this coming Wednesday, which is Chapter 2, Association. We're going to be jumping back in to the book. And so, first of all, I think it's really important that you actually go back and go over Chapter 1 because it's been a couple of weeks since we've really been in the book, and I just want to be a great reminder, a great overview. Just take a couple of moments and go over Chapter 1 selection. Just remember that where we started out in this book was with selection, teaching that Jesus selected a few, and he focused on that core group of men whom who we refer to as the disciples, and that even though he didn't neglect the masses, that he really his focus, his primary focus, was to actually pour into these men, teach these men, explain to these men the gospel or the truth. And these men were always with him. They came alongside him and they were always with him. And so as we slide into chapter 2 this Wednesday, chapter 2 is on what's called what Coleman calls association. And basically what Coleman is doing here in this book is he's taking the model, the strategy that Jesus had to evangelize to the masses, really, and he's breaking it apart so that he can really teach us and in parts. And first, chapter 1 is talking about how he chose his men that were going to become his core group of disciples. And then in chapter 2, we see a very profound part of that strategy coming together. And that is that he wasn't just passing on knowledge, that he was actually passing on himself to his disciples. He was passing on the model of who he was and how the gospel or the truth was actually expressed. What did that look like? What did the expression of truth really look like? And his the really cool thing was that his disciples had a front row seat to see what did it look like. They had private lessons, and they were able to not only hear the truth as Jesus taught others, but they were actually able to hear the truth as he taught them personally, and had them very close to him, teaching them as a very close teacher. And they heard the truth, and then they also were able to see his behavior. They were actually able to see how he responded. What were the things that Jesus did that really kind of modeled everything that he was teaching them and that he was talking about? What did this love, what did this truth look like in action? Jesus really wanted to show them firsthand. And for them just not to see it, or not just to hear it, but to see it. This really had a profound effect on Jesus' strategy, this modeling strategy, if you will, taking them and letting them come alongside him so closely and see him act out what he was teaching. It had a profound effect on them. Jesus was basically acting out what he was saying. And in your book, it says, Jesus was his own school. He was his own curriculum. See, Jesus didn't need organizations. He didn't need to develop nonprofits. He was his own organization. He was his own school. Illustrating this concept for students is really, really important. I'm all for engaging the students and giving them really concrete illustrations so they can really understand what this looks like in their lives and be able to apply it and really see more clearly what that looks like on a daily basis. When I was reading over this chapter, I was thinking about how it was really so neat how the disciples were able to witness this kind of holistic approach to evangelism. We learn in different ways, and Jesus obviously knew this. Jesus created us. He knows what makes us tick and how we learn. And there's all kinds of different ways that we learn, but three most common ways, and you probably heard of this, is audibly and verbally, and then of course kinesthetically. And everyone learns differently. And they learn differently at different times, depending on what they're learning and when they're learning. I'm more of a kinesthetic learner, but there's times that I learn more effectively audibly. So Jesus knew this, and so I thought it was really interesting to think about the fact that the disciples, no matter how they learned, that they were able to learn in all different ways. They heard it, they saw it, and then later they acted it out, and Jesus corrected them as needed. So it's really important. Like I said, it's very important to give illustrations to the students and engage them in conversation about why modeling truth is just as important as hearing or verbalizing truth. For example, and I kind of tried to brainstorm a couple of different examples of that you can use, and you can use them or get more creative. I know that there's a lot of you guys that are a lot more creative than I am at doing stuff like this, so feel free to use your own illustration or your own example, or you can use one of mine. But one thing I really thought of that kind of hit home with me was if you ask the students to think about someone in their life that is very profound to them, that they really care about, they really love, and that could be a parent or a sibling or a best friend or whoever. And if they can think about how, if that person tells them and expresses to them verbally how much they care about them, then they have the knowledge, they have that incoming knowledge. But how does it feel when that person actually expresses a behavior that expresses love and expresses caring? It takes on a whole new meaning. It kind of comes alive. The words, the knowledge comes alive. And so, that was one example. There was another example I thought of. You can use maybe if they were in school and they had a math teacher who was teaching them a math problem, and they were teaching him this problem, and it was all verbal. Nothing was down on the blackboard. And how much easier it would be if your teacher would actually write the problem down and go through the problem, show you the steps of the problem and to get to the answer. So then the student would be able to say, aha, I can try this now. I can. And it takes on a new meaning because you have the verbal, and then you also have the model of what is to be done. So feel free to use an illustration. I encourage you to do that and engage them in that. So what does this all mean to a teen? I mean, what does this look like in a teen's life? Well, I think it's really important for them, obviously, to know that they need to have a foundational understanding, at the very least, of the gospel and of Jesus's God's character, and then to model that. What does that look like in when you actually express the truth? What does that look like in your life? How do you act that out? How do you model that? What does it look like? And so then they can turn around and they can model that for others who are willing to learn and want to know the truth of God. It just takes on so much of a more significant meaning in people's lives when that's done. So what I'm going to do is, kind of running out of time, what I'm going to do is I'll give you some questions. And I'll email you those questions. I'm probably going to do 5 to 7 questions. I haven't quite made all of them up yet, but you can use those questions as a guide just to facilitate discussion on Wednesday night. Certainly you don't have to get through all your questions, but I think even if you have some really rich conversation on just one question, I think, let the Spirit lead your group, and I know that you'll have some really, really good discussions out of this. I'll also give you some interesting facts I just kind of pulled out of the book. I thought they were interesting. A lot of them I didn't know, I had never read before, and I think that also can facilitate some really good discussion as well. So I hope you have a great night, and I'll see all you guys hopefully on Sunday at 12:30. Bye-bye.